How y'all doing? Just doing another quick video. I'm going to react to Real Time with Bill Maher. He is, I don't know what he would consider himself, a liberal, Democrat, left wing, I'm not sure. Progressive maybe, but he's got some sense. He comes at situations with a logical thought process, common sense. So I want to react to this little clip in particular because I think it's important for the message that I'm trying to get out there. I'm looking for a conversation. A lot of this stuff dealing with trans, the LGBTQ community, some things seem like common sense to me, like gender or, if you're a man or a woman. And I think a lot of these issues get clouded and they just become one big issue for a group that is not necessarily just one big group as a whole. There are many differences, and I think that large portions of the LGBTQ community are being misrepresented by what would be a fringe few in certain portions of the community. So, with that said, let's listen to liberal, progressive Bill Maher and see what he's talking about.
And finally, new rule: if something about the human race is changing at a previously unprecedented rate, we have to at least discuss it. Broken down over time, the LGBT population of America seems to be roughly doubling every generation. According to a recent Gallup poll, less than 1% of Americans born before 1946, that's Joe Biden's generation, identify that way. 2.6% of boomers do, 4.2% of Gen X, 10.5% of millennials, and 20.8% of Gen Z. Which means if we follow this trajectory, we will all be gay in 2054.
I don't know if y'all watch Bill Maher. I catch him every now and then. Usually it's just his YouTube clips. But if you watch Bill Maher, whenever he makes a joke that he thinks is great, that he thinks is hilarious, he's going to shut down production. He's going to make sure that all the good shots go on him and he can express his great thoughts about whatever he just said. This was one of those times. But, I mean, stats don't lie, right? So, what year? 2050 something? All right.
And then who's going to buy this chair?
I don't get it.
I'm just saying that when things change this much, this fast, people are allowed to ask, what's up with that? All the babies are in the wrong bodies? Was there a mix-up at the plant, like with Captain Crunch's Oops, Old Berries? It wasn't that long ago when adults asked a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? They meant what profession? In the wake of America about to lose abortion rights, the ACLU recently tweeted a list of those who would be disproportionately harmed by this. You would think women might top that list. No, wasn't even on the list. Second on the list was LGBT. Really?
Okay, I let a little more time than I typically do before I stopped it and ran my mouth. But I wanted him to set up what this whole little segment was about. The LGBTQ community, how it's growing, and how somehow or another women are being pushed out of certain spaces. I'll just let him keep talking.
Abortion rights affects gay and trans people more than, breeders. I'm happy for LGBT folks that we now live in an age where they can live their authentic lives openly. And we should always be mindful of respecting and protecting. But someone needs to say it. Not everything's about you. And it's okay to ask questions about something that's very new and involves children. The answer can't always be that anyone from a marginalized community is automatically right, trump card, mic drop, end of discussion. Because we're literally experimenting on children. Maybe that...
Listen, to me, that is the greatest travesty in this entire situation. Is that something that is perfectly okay. If you are gay, if you're a guy that wants to be a girl, if you want to, whatever you want to do, that's your business. But there are times for that type of lifestyle. And typically, and almost always, that's when you're an adult. You have plenty of time. Kids don't understand that because they're kids. They can't fathom the concept of 10 years from now, this won't even matter. 20 years from now, you won't even be thinking about this. Because they've only got a limited space of time to compare their thought processes and their mindsets with. And that's okay. That's part of why parents and adults and role models are in place to help kids guide and navigate through these different things. Now we tell, hey, if you're 5 years old and you get in a dress a couple times, you're a girl, not a boy. It doesn't matter you were born a boy. And somehow or another, we're normalizing that. That's the single biggest travesty with this entire situation. And number two is the fact that the entire community is misrepresented because of a few.
That's why Sweden and Finland have stopped giving puberty blockers to kids. Because we
Puberty
just don't know
blockers.
much about the long-term effects. Although common sense should tell you that when you reverse the course of raging hormones, there's going to be problems.
Something else I wanted to mention. First, before I forget this thought. They will tell you, and when I say they, I mean the advocates for gender-affirming surgery for minors, puberty blockers for minors. Specifically, that is the problem. You want to get on some puberty blockers or take some estrogen and you're a biological male when you're an adult and you can make those decisions and you can be accountable for the consequences of those decisions. And according to our civilized standards, you have developed enough mentally and your brain function has gotten to a point to where those types of decisions can be better made. Then cool, do your thing. But these are kids we're talking about here. Children. Children can be manipulated into doing anything. Absolutely anything. You can imprint whatever you want on a child if you're around them enough. Puberty blockers? Stop puberty? Block puberty? What the fuck? A normal thing for a normal human being? Blocking it? Just because there might be a chance that they might not be comfortable in their body. They're not going to be comfortable at 18. If they're not comfortable at 5 or 10 or 15, they're not going to be comfortable at 18. And part of life is discomfort. Kind of giving the impression, well, we'll just take you out of this situation, magically put you in this one. You'll be the opposite gender and you won't feel any discomfort anymore. That's bullshit. Because if it's not your gender, it'll be your sexual orientation or your race or your education or your status or something. Something in life is always going to make us uncomfortable. That's just fucking life. So this is bullshit. They're pushing bullshit and don't even know what the long-term effects are going to be. But they'll tell you there's none and we could just stop this at any time and go right back to it. 24, you know what? I was born a male. Decided at about 4.5 to 5 that I was definitely a woman. I felt that way until I was 13. Now, you know what? I don't feel like it. But now, I have to take all these puberty blockers, this and that. That's not reversible. You can't just pick up wherever you decide to stop and leave off. It's not how biology works. It's not how the human body works.
We do know it hinders the development of bone density, which is kind of important if you like having a skeleton. Fertility and the ability to have an orgasm seem also to be affected. This isn't just a lifestyle decision, it's medical.
Right.
Weighing trade-offs is not bigotry.
Right.
Yet when a book questioning the subject...
You know what he says? Weighing trade-offs is not bigotry. And the problem is that people that are on the side of giving children the opportunity to make those decisions for themselves will tell you that any argument, any question, any backlash is transphobia, homophobia, any phobia, any ism, you name it. Because they'll tell you, if you're a little white kid, a little white boy, and somehow or another you decide you're a girl when you're 6 and you get your ding-a-ling chopped off, that's somehow rooted in racism. That's the narrative. So you become everything just because you have a question, just because you have a pushback about something that is fucking common sense. No, we should not give children puberty blockers. No, we should not stop their hormone. No. Shouldn't replace, change. The only thing that you should be doing with a child in any regard to that is if they have some medical condition that they're deficient in this, or they might need that, or whatever. But telling me that the boy thinks he's a girl because he's wearing a dress, and so now we pump him full of... It's fucking dumb. The fact that it's not obvious that it's dumb is even dumber.
An uptick in transitioning children was released. A trans lawyer with the ACLU named Chase Strangio tweeted, "Stopping the circulation of this book and these ideas is 100% a hill I will die on." How very civil liberties of him. Chase, by the way, has just been named one of the grand marshals of this year's New York City Pride March, along with 3 other trans people and a lesbian. Huh, what's missing here? Oh, right, a gay man.
This subject matter here is going to start to touch on my thought process about the misrepresentation of the LGBTQ community. For this New York Pride Month in 2022, he said there were 3 trans, this gentleman who I guess is trans, so 4 trans, 1 lesbian, no gay men. And those were the grand marshals representing the gay pride event in New York. Five individuals, 4 of them trans. LGBTQIA+. There's only 1 T in that motherfucker. And that's my point. There is an overrepresentation for the entire community by a small group. And even more unfortunate than that, of that small group, there's an even smaller group that makes the most noise, that gets the most attention, and these are the individuals that are making policy. Because these are the individuals that the government, local, and on up the line are kowtowing to on every corner. Look at Bud Light. Put Dylan Mulvaney on a fucking can of beer. Bud Light? Bud Light. Nike has him dancing in a fucking sports bra. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But the misrepresentation of the entire LGBTQ community is the second biggest travesty in this whole thing, after the fact that people actually think it's okay for children to do this shit.
That's where we are now. Gay men aren't hip enough for the gay pride parade. Compared to trans, gay is practically cis, and cis is practically Mormon. And this is a phenomenon we need to take into account when we look at this issue. Yes, part of the rise in LGBT numbers is from people feeling free enough to tell it to a pollster, and that's all to the good. But some of it is, it's trendy. Penis equals man? Okay, boomer. Remember, the prime directive of every teen is anything to shock and challenge the squares who brought you up. It's why nobody gets a nose ring at 56. And if you haven't noticed that with kids, doing something for the likes is more important than their own genitals, you haven't been paying attention. Dr. Erica Anderson is a prominent 71-year-old clinical psychologist who is herself transgender and who now says, I think it's gone too far. The LA Times summarized.
That's another thing. I see this video is getting kind of long, so I'm only going to touch on a couple more points. But Dr. Erica Anderson, who is transgender, I think it's gone too far. I could elaborate on that. I've read a lot of her stuff. There's not enough representation for the transgender portion of the community that is not okay with this going on and this happening to children. They get shut down. They get canceled like everybody else who's got a question or a thought. How hypocritical. How are we able to stand on such hypocrisy? How's that that makes sense? Who the fuck does that? And the numbers. But you know, the problem is, out of the half of the country that will tell you that that's okay, there's only about a small portion of them that believe it. The rest are just too afraid to say anything because they don't want to get canceled, because losing your job is real. Because the shit that these motherfuckers will do to prove to you what a transphobic, racist piece of shit you are knows no bounds. And it has real life consequences for people that have real life shit going on. So it's a shame. But where are more of these people?
She's come to believe that some children identifying as trans are falling under the influence of their peers and social media. If you attend a small dinner party of typically very liberal upper-income Angelenos, it is not uncommon to hear parents who each have a trans kid having a conversation about that. What are the odds of that happening in Youngstown, Ohio? If this spike in trans children is all natural, why is it regional? Either Ohio is shaming them or California is creating them. It's like...
What happens to that child? The masses of these children that he's talking about. Because I am very on board with that. I believe a lot of this transgender explosion has a lot to do with the parents. And so what happens? That's another part of the community we don't hear enough of. The detransitioners that will tell you in a heartbeat all of the reasons why they made a terrible mistake. And you know, most of them that I've read up on and watched documentaries on, I've done a deep dive on this. I'm not just talking off the top of my fucking head. I am very serious about this issue. Most of them, they will tell you that they blame the doctors, they blame their parents, and they blame all the people around them that were saying, hey, you feel like a girl? Okay, come on, let's go chop your dingling off. Give you some titties. Come on, man. Give me a fucking break. Anyway, I'm going to cut it right there. There's some more of this Bill Maher video. I'll do a part 2 to this one, but this one's getting long, so we're going to shut it off. And I'll finish reacting to the Bill Maher. I appreciate you watching. You can catch it on YouTube. I'm loading them up on Rumble too. So I'll put a link for Rumble. I'll put a link for Bill Maher. And appreciate y'all watching.